right, great. Hello, everybody. A warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us on this webinar today, showcasing the brand new MineScape 2021. So, by way of introduction, my name's Jonathan Graham. I'm the General Manager of DataMine in Australia. As a background, I'm a geologist. I've been working with DataMine for over 15 years and an avid user of our geology software. And my colleague, Jim Sronce, he's the General Manager of MineScape. He resides in Omaha, Nebraska in the USA, and Jim is a mining engineer by trade. He's been associated with the product management of MineScape for over 10 years, and he's been a user of the product for over 15 years. So the agenda for today's webinar, I'll be acting as a co-host and will soon hand over to Jim, who will be running the webinar. And it's expected to take about 40 minutes. At the end, we'll have time for a Q&A, so please, if you have any questions, type them into the chat box and we'll address as many as we can at the end of the presentation. At the conclusion of today's webinar, you'll be prompted to answer a few simple questions on today's webinar, and we would really appreciate any feedback you could give us. And finally, for those who have to duck out at any point, totally understand, a link to the recording of this webinar will be sent to all registrants and in time be added to DataMine's YouTube channel. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Jim, who will be handling the bulk of this presentation today. So Jim, over to you.
All right. Hey, thanks, John. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone showing up. And like Jono says, what we'll do is just kind of give an overview of MineScape 2021, some of the new stuff, and some people may know about some of these things, others not. But hopefully we'll be able to have some time at the end of this webinar, but this should take the full 45 minutes. So I appreciate it. So we might as well get started. So here we go. What I would like to do is show a few PowerPoint slides, showing what we've done, and then spend some time showing MineScape 2021. I don't want to keep you all long, so this will seem to go fast. But, you know, we want to take questions at the end of the presentation because everyone will be on mute. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat area, and then we'll get to them afterwards. But before we go into the PowerPoint slides, what I would like to do is go ahead and show a video of explaining why we did what we did for MineScape 2021.
You know, we all really want to spend less time moving around in CAD, especially in your mine planning software. You just want to do your design work. Hi, my name is Jim Sronce, and I'm the General Manager of MineScape, and I'd like to chat with you a little bit about our new product. MineScape is a set of applications made for mining engineers and geologists to help you do your stratigraphic modeling, your block modeling, and your mine design. MineScape's been around quite a few years, and it's definitely evolved. We first started on mainframes, and now, as you know, we're on laptops, and we just keep going forward. In 2019, we knew we had to make a change because our interface was becoming outdated and it was showing its age. It was old. So we knew how inefficient it was and how our menus were laid out and how you had to access our options. And we knew it wasn't going to fit into our future plans. That's when we started really thinking about how we can make this more intuitive, easier for the user to get their work done quicker. That's why we embarked on this journey, this rapid design theme. It's all about efficiency. It's all about the velocity of design work. It's all about getting those plans to operations. We brought in a ribbon structure to help with the workflow because, you know, we read left to right. Why don't we have a workflow left to right? What used to take 3 or 4 clicks, boom, now we have the rapid CAD tools. You click, you stay focused. Instead of having to look for an option, now just click on this line, move this vertex, and you're done. The tools are right there now. When I do a layout for engineering solids, I'm using the rapid CAD tools to help me lay out that pit shell. Help me lay out those strips, make those changes, things you need to do your design work rapidly. That means you can concentrate, you can stay focused on really what your job is. It's not learning how to do CAD work. Your job is to get the design done. And we want you to get it done quicker so you can do more. You know, we're really excited about where we're heading with MineScape, and especially with the rapid design theme. If you're interested, give us a call and let's have a chat.
Now that you know what we did and why we did it, we decided to do something different in these next releases. As you can see, we actually released MineScape 2021 in July of this year. Before that, we did do a controlled release, almost like a beta release, to a handful of customers to get the feedback before we put it in production. Well, since then, we've done an update 1, and that happened in September, and everyone should have access to that. And we've got another one scheduled for, the first week of November. Our strategy is we want to do more frequent, continuous updates. And what this does is it actually gets these issues that have been reported, gets them to you faster, quicker. And these are the things that are important to you, or you wouldn't have reported them. It actually does improve our quality assurance. So we can have better quality control if we have smaller, more frequent updates. And, ultimately what we're trying to do is reduce any backlog of any issues that come up. Because what we really want to do is work on new features, new enhancements, things that you all want to make your job easier and better and quicker. But we've got to fix some of these issues that keep cropping up. So another thing we did is, because MineScape 2021 is a big step change. I mean, it's way different than what people are used to seeing with the menus, drop down menus, and you have to expand menus. Things have changed. So we thought, well, let's just maybe we can amp up our announcement and our release notes. So we wanted to try to get this to be a bit more modern, something that you want to read. I mean, people get tired of just reading flat files. So, we thought, well, if we can get something out there where people will want to look at it, well, maybe it will get some questions to us even, or maybe give them an opportunity, or you, the users, an opportunity to really go through here and try things that you've never tried before. Now, here's some statistics. And if you notice in the blue tones, update 1, since July to September, we added 8 enhancements. But we resolved over 100 issues. Remember, MineScape 2021's new, and it got out to the production. It got out to a lot more people other than the controlled release. So there was a few more issues that cropped up. Now, with update 2, if you notice, we've had more time to spend on creating, new features, new functionality. And so we quadrupled the number of enhancements from 8 to 32. That's a good thing. And we continue to reduce our backlog. We resolved over 48 issues. So the point is, as I mentioned earlier, we really want to do more frequent updates so we can get these things to you, the user, so you can be productive. Okay, so what I would like to do now is go do a quick little MineScape demo and highlight some of the big ticket items in MineScape 2021. For some of you that haven't seen it or haven't tried it yet, I just thought I'd go through it. Some of you have probably seen this, and I want to get it out there to people. And I'm going to cover some of the items that are going in Update 2 for people that might be interested in that. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is MineScape 2021. This is the start page. And if you notice that the start page now, we have products and we have apps. So we kind of changed the structure a little bit. So you have to do the product and then the project. But we've also added a new thing other than videos. We've always had those. and the library, some how-to features and getting started guides. But one thing we've added was this news tab. And so this is something that we're going to start implementing and let people know what's going on within the MineScape team and things like that. So just keep that in mind. You'll get updates and go ahead and review that. So if I go back into a project, I have a project started already. And as you can see, MineScape 2021 is menu driven. I'm sorry, it's ribbon driven. We've updated all the menus, pulled all those menus out, and made icons for them, basically. So we've exposed all those functions on the ribbon with icons. So everything has an icon, and that just facilitates when you try to build your own custom menu. We have the home, and that's what we decided to do, is try to get as much out there of functions that people use, okay? I mean, we even exposed the contour out here in the home page. And as you can see, when I hover over a function, it gives me a tooltip. You can hit the tell me more, and you can go ahead and get that tooltip or that help on that. And then to get around, all you have to do is just select these menus up here, and a new ribbon will be exposed to you. And so we've changed the design. People that have used the design before, and in this case, I don't have a design file open, so if I turn one on, they'll be highlighted. This is really the element edit that you used to have in version 7 or earlier. A couple of things we've added here. We've got a repair data now. So we've built some functionality in there to clean up your elements. We have an interactive curve along with the regular curve, and we've got a spline, cubic spline option to build elements. And of course, we've added the new corridor in here along with the dynamic slicing. I'll go through some of that here in a minute. And one of the big things for 2021 is the new mesh functionality. And we needed to bring this in because we needed to bring in some Boolean functionality. What's happened is triangles are going away eventually. They're still available, okay? And what you do is you can convert triangulations to mesh. The reason we call it mesh is to differentiate between the new triangulation versus legacy triangulation. So I'll go through some of that too. We've added some new functionality in plotting. But one of the biggest things besides the ribbon is this rapid CAD functionality. And so we've added 3 new hotkeys. L for line string, to create a line string. P for polygon. And then, of course, G for rectangle, because you couldn't do R because R is a reset. And so if you notice there, I've created all those elements, hadn't even gone to the ribbon yet. And I can take these, I can just, if I want to move that vertex, I could sticky snap. It's called sticky snap, where I can just go ahead and move that vertex. If I want to change the color quickly, I can just pull down, change the color, line weight, line style, all that. If I want to make this element the same as that element, I can come down here and notice there's a purple dot, quick edit element. If I look here, there's a purple dot here. If I can move that, or I hit the paintbrush, it grabs the attributes from that element, and you can highlight other elements. If I don't like that element, I can just delete it. It's easy enough to delete. If I want to extend that element, I can actually hold down the left button and start moving. If I want to break this element, there's a pull down. I can hit the space bar and I can say, break at that vertex. So now the element's broke. There's 2 elements here. I can actually put together by hitting Control Z. Control Z is an undo. There's other functionality in here. If I hit the pull down, insert vertices, midpoint. Insert vertices is pretty cool. So If I want to insert vertices this direction, notice how the arrow goes. And I can do a uniform grade, last Z, active Z, or custom Z. So I can type in a Z value. And if I had a grade, I can just do uniform grade. And notice it attaches to the segment. If I hit the hotkey, the comma, it takes me off that segment. So I can go around something. Now, if you have a grade on here, it will actually interpolate that grade. And just if I hit the comma, it brings me right back to the element. Okay, Q to quit, there's a new element. If I don't like that vertice, I sticky snap, I hit a delete. A lot of functionality here where you don't even go to the ribbon. So I think that's pretty cool. That's Rapid CAD. So now let's talk a little bit about some visual overrides. If you notice there, I have a mesh up of a pit, and I go to visual overrides. And some of you might have seen this already, but there's a height Q function now. So I can select height Q, and notice I get to choose from a color palette. I'm going to select one like Terrain 1 colors, and I'm going to select it. Now it's asking for a lower color and a higher color. And if you notice there, how nice now you can see the visuals on this. What we've also done is under contouring. If you go to contouring now, you have the option, in this case, if I select a mesh, and I'm just going to contour a mesh, for example. And if I just contour a mesh, you can go in here and you can use filled or lines, intervals, and then you have the same option to use a color palette. So if you want to do a rainbow color, and let's say you want to show the lower ones as red and the upper ones as purple, that's how you do reverse coloring now in MineScape. You have complete control over this. You can use a color palette, or you can continue to go back and use your major and minor contours. If you notice, when I select that palette, it pulls up DTM major. I can change the color however I like, and go in there. I don't have to know the name of display definition now. Something else we've done is, I don't know if people have used dynamic slicing, but it used to be if you would do dynamic slicing, I'd create a slice. I go boom, boom. And, of course, you can change your settings. But before, you used to have to go to your Explorer and remove these planes. Now we have that function here to remove that plane, or if you have a number of planes already defined out here, you can say remove all. The other one is the new corridor. So if I select a corridor here, select that. You don't know where you are here, so you can go to bird's eye. Now, what we've done on bird's eye, it's a toggle now. Toggle it on, toggle it off. And I put mine at the right side as the default. And so now you know where you are. So if I just, as an example, if I just step forward, backward, you can see it moving. You'll have control over your corridor width. Let's make that corridor width 100. The drag is pretty cool. So it says pick reference point or use the shift scroll. So if I just use the shift and scroll wheel, it just scrolls right through there. Or I could just click on one. And if you notice how it's moving that plane now, up, down, whatever elements you have out here in your CAD, it's going to slice. You're done with it, you just hit show or hide the corridor. So if you're done with that window, all you have to do is just toggle it off. It's all good. Let's talk a little bit about mesh. So if I go to mesh, and I actually want to create a surface, so what I'm going to do is turn on some design file data. And in this case, I have some contour data I want to just go ahead and turn on. Make that my current layer. I come down here to my display. I'll remove that. Fit it. So there's the data that I want to triangulate. And that's a lot of data. My exaggeration is 5:1. So I'll go back and I'll reset my exaggeration. Go back to normal. And so I want to build a triangulation from that. So it's pretty easy. You can either select all your data this way, okay, or you can come down here to your display dock, and these are new functions in MineScape 2021. I can just go ahead and select all that data. Okay, so you have control over what you want to select. And it's quick. It's quick. So I've selected that data. Now I'm going to go back to mesh. I'm just going to create a surface. And if you notice, it's already triangulated this data by the time it took me to get this form up and move this form. And there was 11,175 elements. Now I've got a whole bunch of extraneous data on the outside. I can trim that. So I'm going to select trim on this. Just click out of there. So what it's going to do now is it's going to trim all that data with just having a max length of 500. Now, if you had a polygon, you can just go ahead and use the polygon to relimit, delete outside or delete inside. Or you can relimit it later too. I try to do it all at one time. So if I'm done, here's the nice thing also, you can add more elements to it in case you didn't select everything. So if I just queue to quit that, now it comes back and says, oh, what do you want to call it? We've grouped our output into mesh groups with mesh names. And you can go ahead and create a surface. So if I just call this one Topo Demo, and if you wanted to, you can add a texture and whatever shading. I'm going to say OK. And so what it's going to do now is it's going to create that mesh. If you notice, the mesh is now created. And if I hide the contours, so there's the mesh. You saw how quick it was to create the mesh. And again, you can also come over here and you can change your height cue. Or in this case, if you had a texture to this, I can very well go in here and add the texture. So I can put it here on this Topo Demo. I'll browse for the texture. It's a TIFF file. I'll bring that in. I'll say OK. So now what it's going to do is it's going to, because this is real world coordinates, it's going to go ahead and just bring that texture in or that image in to on that mesh. Now it stays with the mesh. If you don't want that, you got to go over here and clear the mesh because it's now going to be part of your mesh. Okay, so let's look at some point clouds. So I'll go ahead and turn off this stuff. So with point clouds, we've given you the capability to bring in X, Y, Z, or LAS files and some other formats. So if I look at an LAS file as an example, and just bring in one that's pretty cool to look at. Now this, because it's, there's quite a few points in the point cloud, this take a minute or two to get on. But the nice thing about it is, once we get the point cloud loaded up, we can visualize it, we can digitize off it, use it for design work, and you don't even have to create a mesh if you don't want to. So we'll get this loaded up, and we do have some filtering and some mesh functionality to create a mesh from the point cloud. So here's just an example from we have, and it's of a mine site office area in shop. And so that's just one example of a point cloud you can bring in. Now, this one you really couldn't mesh because of all the buildings, but you can still use it to do design work or anything else you want to do with it. Now, the other thing we've done too is we've given you the capability to bring in XYZ data. Instead of bringing in XYZ data into a design file, you can just bring it into a point cloud. There's some XYZ data. And you can see it's really some dense data. And really the XYZ, it's what it is. It's EC northern elevation. And so instead of bringing this up into a design file, you can just go ahead and just load it right here and go ahead and mesh it if you wanted to and use it to digitize. Okay, I'll turn that off. Now I want to show you one other thing. I just want to bring this up. This is coming out in update 2. So what we've added here under strat model, if you go to build table, is now we've got some functionality in here to build an incline model with non-vertical holes. So now we've got a function in here so you can use a plane or an azimuth or a slope or meshes, and you can adjust. So now we built in that functionality to do an incline model. So it's something to give it a shot. Now you can also, one other thing I want to point out, you can also draw your schema from here. We've added that in there. So what I'll do now is I'm going to go to a different project. And so I can show you the bench blocks. This is new functionality under Surface Engineering Open Cut. It's called bench blocks. And what this will do is it will slice and dice an area that you're interested in. So I'll just quickly go through one. So I have an area here where I want to do a cut of a bench. So if I go in here, go to my design file, which I have a limit. I'm going to hide my topo. And what I want to do is slice this. But before I slice this, I have to create a scenario. So come up here, and I'm just going to type in a scenario called bench B480 for bench 480. Enter it. So I actually have one already built, but I'll go ahead and turn that off so I can show you how to do it. So if I turn on my topo that I want to cut, and if I go to create, and it asks you, you know, what mesh do you want to do your cut on, design, what is the polygon I want to cut. So I'll hide this. I want to do that polygon for my bench. So I'll select that polygon. And then I can assign a cut angle. What angle do you want to do this? I'll just go ahead and assign it a 68-degree angle. Okay, so now I've set that. I'm going to put it on a surface I call it bench slope surface. This is an MXL surface, so I can get it to drain from, say, west to east. MXL, and then it's going to create a layer mesh group of 480 in these bench blocks. So what it's going to do is it's going to cut my topography, this topography right here, and build me a bench that I can work with. So now what I'll do is if I do a cut start, I need to set some cutter lines. So I'll just go in here and set this layer current, and I'll just show you quickly. If I toggle this on, the toggle tooltip, it tells me what my volume is for that bench. And if I do a cut start, okay, and it turns it green. So now I'm going to leverage the rapid CAD tools. I'm going to draw a line, but before I do that, I want to make that line 45 degrees, the slope 45 degrees. So I'm going to strike a line. Now, you don't have to determine the angle of the direction. Depends how you draw the line. I'm going to draw it from bottom up, and that means my slope is going to be on the left-hand side. So the outside. So this area will be laid back at 45 degrees. So if I just strike a line right here, and what it does is it cut that bench, and it says, oh, that's 100,000 of the total. If I think that's too big, I can just leverage the rapid CAD tools. What I'll do is I'll toggle this tooltips off with the space bar. I'll grab a hold of my line, and I'll just move it over a little bit to try to get a different volume. And if you notice, it recut it. Now it's at 86,000 or 82,000. So now what I can do is I can leverage the design tools, or I can continue to lay in lines. So if I just bring this one up, this cutter one, okay, and I'll do a cut in, and then I'll do a cut start. And if you notice there how I brought in a new set of cutters and how it recut all those elements right now. And now these are all at a different slope because I wanted to put a different slope in there. So you can see all the slopes. Toggle the tooltips off. You can also, it's no issue if I wanted to create another line here and cut this block once more if I wanted to. If you like it, you just say cut end. Now, what you can do on this is I'm going to run a reserve. Now, if this is a cold block, with colon resource, when you calculate the reserves, you install a schema. And in this case, with intervals and qualities, in this case, I know it's just strictly burden. So I'm just going to go ahead and run the reserves. Now, when you run the reserves, what it does is it creates metadata, and it writes the volume and qualities and resource to that block. And then what I can do is report it. The nice thing about this report is it goes out to an Excel spreadsheet. So now you can take that into short range scheduling. The other thing you can do is, if you're comfortable with this, you can go ahead and merge it to topography. So if I merge it to this topo that I'm doing, okay, the 480 group. I'm gonna do the topo, and then the relimit one. I'm gonna take all the blocks. You can pick by scenario. So if I pick this scenario, and I'm just going to pick the very first block, okay, of this. So if you want to know what that very first block is, you just toggle your tooltips back on. And that's 4801, 4802, and so on and so forth. So if I go back in here to merge, and I'm going to do 4801, I just want to do the first one so I can kind of build a progression. And I'll put it in this group right here. If I say, okay, so what it's going to do now is it's going to actually merge that block from that scenario into a topography that then I can go ahead and send out in the field. It says, okay, if you remove that quantity of 81,000, here's what the surface would look like after it's removed. Okay, and again, you can go ahead and change the colors to all this, and you can see all your blocks on. And then you can actually merge, keep merging. If you wanted to merge, take the next block, what you would do is you would use the bench 480 blocks, grab a hold of this one, and then maybe take the second one if that's what you want to do, or the second and third one, and then you create a different mesh so that you can build a progression. But the beauty of this is you get a progression, you get your quantities, you get your resources, and you get an Excel workbook with that. Okay, so that's bench blocks. Now, one other thing I'll show you before we go to the roadmap is I'll change project again. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll quickly show you the solids when we do the solids. So this is new too under strip planning. We've added some new functionality in here to create solids, to create solid boundaries, and also to do interval intersections. So the create, what it does is this create is a workflow, and it's scenario based, meaning that if I go look in your Explorer, you have strip planning, and under strip planning, I have two scenarios right now, P02 and P03. If I look at P03, it manages that for me. It tells me I'm working in the P3 design file, okay, and here's the meshes associated with that scenario you're working in. But what it does is it gives you the capability to name your layers, how you want to do your pit projections. You can do with surfaces or surfaces and benches alone, or just set angles and offsets. And you can use side definitions that could be complicated or simple side definitions. So all you do is you would assign side definitions. I have multiple side definitions created. So you assign side definitions to your pit shell as an example. And of course, after you assign your side definitions to your pits and your strips, you project them. And there's projection rules. It's using the pit projection rules that you've defined, and it's using your sampling and your curve radius and all that. And there's a build button to do all this. And the same for strips. Now, if you notice, you don't do anything with the subdivides or the cutters. The cutters are only 90 degrees, where your strips and your and your pitch shell are angles and offsets. And then you just go to here to generate your solids. Now, with the generate your solids, you have the option to change your surface. So a lot of times what happens after you build your solids, you'll start mining through some of this stuff. You'll get a current topography. Well, all you have to do is come in here and change your topography right here. Change your topography, and your solids can be regenerated by clipping to a new topography. So it's really fast. And what happens is it's using Boolean, so everything's watertight, meaning you're not getting any gaps in your solids. And so you're not going to have these errors and these issues when you try to do reserves or you try to do something with them, because they're watertight. We have taken some of that work away from the users, and MineScape is doing all that for you. So what happens is it builds pitch shells, it actually builds your strips, then it intersects your strips with your pitch shell, and then it intersects your strips that have been clipped to your pitch shell with the cutter lines, okay? And it's just these build buttons, so you can build them one at a time, look at them, make sure they're right. So what I have here is I have a pitch shell solid that I created. So this is what the pitch shell would look like, okay, with my projections, my ups and offs. The other one it does is it builds this pitch shell level. So what this pitch shell level is, and if I hide this design, what it's done is it's taken all your projections of your surfaces and it's clipped them to the pitch shell. So each one of these are a different mesh. So when it generates the strips, it's gonna intersect them with these meshes. So these meshes are, again, watertight. They're all clipped and they're basically contiguous if you think about it. And then after that, after you've done your strips, you've intersected your strips with your pitch shell, this is what you get right here. This is the intersection of the strips. Each one of these are now a strip using my pit projection rules of my ups and offs. So these are strips. And then ultimately what you end up getting is this thing called strip blocks. Now this is what we will reserve and take into a scheduling package. And if you notice, you can see all the different blocks. And this is block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, however many you have. Now, if I do a detail on one of these after I've run the reserves, because when you run the reserves, you get the opportunity to run reserves using a scenario. So if I go to reserves, run reserves. Now this is update 2, so you won't see this if you're currently running, but there's one called multi-mesh, and then you will just pull down your mesh group and the multi-mesh, because this is a whole bunch of blocks. And if you look over here in your display, it's showing 866 blocks. So there's 866 blocks in here, okay? And then after you run your reserves through here, what it does is it writes metadata. So if I just select one of those blocks, you can see here that it's written all this metadata to that block. It gives you your block name, what surfaces it's intersected, and totals. It's totaling everything up, with all the burden and weight average and the thicknesses and resource. So in this case, it tells me I have 565 tons of low. The beauty of that, now you can take that into an interactive filter. So if I go to interactive filter, okay, and I'm going to select it from not design, because now we can have design data. We can have metadata assigned to design data, and I haven't gone through that. Don't have time. So I'll select the mesh, okay, and I'm going to select like bench block and strip as an example, just so I can show you. And the nice thing about that is I can now view. So if I want to look at, let's go look at block 9, okay? Block 9, strip 7, strip 8, strip. So now I can start visualizing how these blocks look. So you could start visualizing it. The other thing you can do is if I go in here and notice I have 3 metadata selected, and that's strip, block, and bench. I can also say, okay, show me the ash. Okay, I want to see the ash on this too. So now what I've done is I've taken all these blocks, and now I've got ash on here. Now I've got some 0 ash, but you know what? I only want to see the ash where it's greater than, I don't know, let's say, I'm checking this. I want to see anything greater than 32% ash, okay? So now what it's going to do is it's going to highlight, it's going to show me the blocks that I have that have more than 32% ash, okay? So if I just select a handful of blocks, say for example, and do a fit, so there's those blocks that meet that criteria of greater than 32% ash. Now, maybe that's too much. So I'm just going to go in here. What I'll do is greater than, let's go with 34 and see how many blocks we get. Okay. You can also unpin this if you wanted to. Now, if you notice here, I have a lot less blocks. So there's all the blocks that I have less than 34%. So there's 15 blocks out here. When you're done, you can just come over here and you just turn all that stuff back on. Or actually turn it all back off, and then you get back to where you are. So that's another big ticket items. Now, the other thing we've done is you can, under surface mining strip planning, you can create your solid boundaries. So you can actually create polygons from this and export them to whatever package you need. Or you can also intersect intervals, user-defined intervals. They could also be schema intervals, okay, your coal intervals. And so you don't have to worry about building all these ups and offs through all this pit projection. You can create yourself a real simple pit projection, locate on the floor, project up to topo, and build a solid, and then come over here and intersect your user-defined intervals or your schema intervals in here, and MineScape manages all that for you. So then when you run your reserves, it knows what to do, because remember, each one of these has a surface associated to them. It tells me this one, the top surface is topo nat, and my bottom surface is basal weathering. So it knows what to do with that and get you the right reserves. So that's all I have for this. And now we'll go back and let's talk a little bit about the roadmap. So this is what we're planning to do for the remainder of the year and update 2, and kind of what we've got some planned for Q1. This is Q1, Q2, first half of next year. So we've got some big ones. We've got a reconciliation project. We're working on some point cloud product, and for sure washability and some integration. This is for the second half of 2022. And again, some of this, as I mentioned, as you saw here in the point cloud, we started it, but we're not finishing it. So hopefully, what we're planning to do was finish this. Now, always keep in mind too that anything you see on a roadmap is subject to change. This is a living document. It's not static. It's pretty dynamic. And there's no guarantee these items will be completed. Some of these will be removed and moved and postponed. So just keep that in mind. But we try to prioritize these. So as you can see, we've got some stuff forecasted for the second half of 2022. Some pretty good features. And then, of course, this is forecast for 2023. So we're looking forward into the future and trying to stay up with what's happening out in industry. So that's all I have. Now, if you all have any questions, now remember too, you guys can always send me email to Jonathan or myself, and we'll be more than happy to answer you guys' question down the road. So that's all I have, Jono.
Just a quick question for those who are on an earlier version of MineScape. Can you just outline the process to upgrade to MineScape 2021? Is there a cost involved, or is there a conversion of data?
No, if they're on maintenance, if they're current with their maintenance, they'll get a notification. Typically, if they're running version 7, they'll get a notification that 2021 is available. If not, they'll get an email saying that's available, and we give them the instructions on how to download the product and install it with instructions.
Right, so it's a free upgrade and there's full compatibility between previous versions.
Yeah, the only thing going backwards, if you go to 2021 and you create a design file with metadata design file, you can't open that up in earlier versions of MineScape's, but you can downgrade it if you needed to.
Yeah,
so
that's fairly standard.
We always try to maintain backward capability.
And just a quick one, I understand that MineScape 2021 is going to support the SQL database as opposed to Oracle.
I should have mentioned that. Yeah, that's a big one, and that came out in 2021, but there's been updates. Yeah, we now support SQL Server along with Oracle if you want to, but and again, if you have Strat Model, we used to do plugins, we do products now. You actually have access to GDB, which is our geological database, which is now running SQL Server. So that's been a good thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Well, look, there are no more questions. So I guess, on Jim's behalf, thank you all for tuning in today. It's been a great presentation. I enjoyed that a lot. So thank you very much, Jim. And we'll sign off for now. And thanks for attending.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending. Appreciate it.